The day I arrived at the Castellini estate, I felt like I was stepping into another world. The cliffs of Sicily rose behind the mansion like stone giants, and the waves below sounded like distant thunder. I stood at the iron gates with my small suitcase, praying I had made the right choice. I had nothing left back home. No job, no family, no safety. This place was my last chance. When the gates opened, I walked down a long path lined with tall cypress trees. Their shadows stretched across the ground like warning signs telling me to turn back. But I kept moving. I needed this job. I needed a new beginning more than anything. Mrs. Ricci, the housekeeper, met me at the door. She looked me over slowly, her eyes sharp behind her wrinkles. "You are the new caretaker for the boy?" she asked. I nodded, clutching my nursing books against my chest. "You must follow every rule," she warned. The last caretakers did not last long. Inside, everything looked like a museum: marble floors, golden frames, giant paintings staring at me from the walls. I felt too small for a place like this, but I followed Mrs. Ricci up the stairs as she talked about strict schedules, strict doctors, strict expectations. Every step made my stomach twist tighter. When we reached the nursery door, she paused. Her voice dropped. "The boy's condition is difficult. His father expects perfection." I took a breath and walked in. The room was dark. Thick curtains blocked every bit of sunlight. Machines blinked along the wall. And in the center of the room was a crib, carved like something out of a fairy tale. A tiny boy lay inside it, still as a statue. He didn't move when I entered. He didn't react at all. "This is Antonio," a voice said from the shadows. I turned and saw him. Salvatore Castellini. The man whose name alone made people tremble. The man who ruled half of Sicily's underworld. The man I had feared meeting more than anyone. But the way he touched his son's hair, it didn't match the stories at all. There was something broken in his eyes, something heavy and sad. "My son has been blind since shortly after birth," he said softly. "No doctor has been able to help." Mrs. Ricci handed me a thick binder. "Memorize it tonight," she said. "Every detail." As I stepped closer to the crib, something unexpected happened. The boy turned his head slightly toward the sound of my footsteps. It was tiny, almost nothing. But I saw it. My heart jumped. Blind children didn't react like that. Not like that. I said nothing. I just smiled at him even though he couldn't see it. At least, that was what everyone believed. That night, I studied his medical files in my small room beside the nursery. The pages were full of diagnoses and medication schedules, sedatives, suppressants, words that made my stomach twist. Something felt wrong, but I didn't know what. The next morning, I followed the schedule exactly. Medication at 6, feeding at 6:15, bath at 7. All controlled, all clinical. The pills dissolved in the warm milk fast, but the bitter smell stayed in the air long after. My instincts told me something was off. At 9, Dr. Barron arrived in a shiny silver Mercedes. He didn't smile at me, didn't greet me. He acted like I wasn't there at all. I watched him through the slightly open door as he examined Antonio. Something about the way he held his penlight bothered me. He never pointed it directly at Antonio's eyes. He moved it close enough to pretend, but far enough to avoid showing any true reaction. It felt practiced. It felt wrong. Later that day, when the sedatives had worn off a little, I tested a few things on my own. I moved around the room quietly. Antonio's head turned when I made a louder sound. During his bath, I splashed water near his face by accident. He flinched. His eyelids shuddered. My heart pounded. He reacted. A blind child should not react like that. That evening, after I put him to sleep, I checked the footage in the monitoring room. Hours of video were missing. Important hours. Especially during the doctor's visits. Someone was hiding something. When I returned to the hall, Salvatore was standing there. His presence filled the air in a way that made my skin warm and cold at the same time. "You have questions," he said. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't gentle either. It was something in between. "I just want to understand his condition," I said carefully. "He reacts to sounds, to light sometimes. It doesn't match complete blindness." A flicker of something passed across his face. Hope, fear, anger, I couldn't tell. But I knew one thing. Whatever was happening in this house, it was bigger and darker than anything I had expected, and I was now part of it. The next morning, I woke before sunrise. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying everything I had seen. Antonio's reactions, the doctor's strange behavior, the missing video footage. Every detail felt like a loose thread, waiting for someone brave enough to pull it. I wasn't brave, not really, but something inside me refused to ignore what I had seen. When I entered the nursery, the room was still dark. I opened the curtains just a little, letting in a thin strip of soft morning light. I kept my eyes on Antonio. His pupils responded. It was small, but it was real. He could see something. That single truth settled into my chest like a weight. I knew I should report it. I knew I should tell the doctor. I knew I should follow the rules. But if I did, I had a terrible feeling that Antonio would suffer for it. At breakfast, I found Mrs. Ricci folding linen in the hall. I considered speaking to her, but stopped when she looked up. Her gaze held the kind of fear people develop from secrets that can kill. Secrets that follow you. Instead, I stayed quiet. Dr. Barron arrived later than usual, and I watched him carefully. His smile was too smooth. His questions too rehearsed. He barely looked at Antonio. He only wrote notes. When he thought I wasn't looking, he reached for the medication cabinet and checked the bottles. He was making sure nothing had changed. He didn't want Antonio to improve. That was the moment I felt the first spark of real danger. Later that afternoon, when the mansion grew quiet, I slipped into the housekeeping closet searching for clean linens. My hand brushed a locked cabinet door. I bent down, curious. Inside the narrow space beneath the wood, I saw something odd. A small vial had rolled out and was lying on the floor. I picked it up. The label read something I had never seen in Antonio's medical file. A chemical compound for sedative suppression, strong enough to affect the eyes. My throat tightened. Someone was drugging this child. Not to calm him, but to blind him. I tucked the vial into my pocket just as footsteps approached. I closed the door and stepped away quickly. It was Salvatore. He looked at me with suspicion sharpened into something colder. "What are you doing here?" he asked. I tried to look calm. "Getting fresh linens," I answered. He studied me for a long moment, as if weighing whether he should believe me. Then he stepped closer. "Antonio was more alert today," he said. "Why?" His voice carried a dangerous mix of curiosity and warning. I felt my palms start to sweat. Cameras watched everything in this house, every move, every word. "I'm trying some new sensory techniques," I said, "things I learned in my nursing training." He held my gaze, trying to read me. I could see he didn't know whether to trust me. But he also wanted answers, answers he had been denied for 2 years. When he walked away, I felt my knees weaken. That night, I made a choice. I spilled the morning medication down the drain and replaced it with harmless sugar water. My heart raced the whole time. If anyone found out, I would not survive this house. But Antonio deserved a chance to live without poison running through his veins. Within hours, he changed. His eyes moved more. His little hands reached toward sound. He smiled. It was faint, but I saw it. A tiny flicker of a smile. He was waking up. Just after sunset, I checked the cameras again in the monitoring room. I clicked through the archived hours, searching for answers. More footage was missing. More gaps. Especially when Dr. Barron visited. As I leaned closer to the screen, I heard a soft creak behind me. I turned. Salvatore stood in the doorway, his dark eyes locked on the screen behind me. "You are not authorized to be in here," he said. My heart pounded so hard I felt it in my throat. "I'm trying to understand," I whispered. "Something is wrong. Your son reacts to light. He follows sound. This doesn't fit his diagnosis." Quote. He stepped closer, his face unreadable. "And you think I haven't wondered that myself?" he asked quietly. His voice was softer than I expected. Tired, frustrated. Something inside him seemed to be breaking. But before I could speak again, Mrs. Ricci appeared behind him. "Mr. Castellini," she said, her voice low. "A delivery has arrived. You may want to see it." He left without another word, but not before giving me one last look that sent a chill through me. It felt like a warning, or maybe a plea. Later that night, when the entire house was silent and Antonio finally slept peacefully, I followed a strange instinct and went to the library. Something had been bothering me about the room since I first stepped inside. I ran my fingers along the bookcase until I found a panel that clicked under my touch. A hidden door opened. Inside was a surveillance room with screens showing every room in the house. Someone was watching everything, including Dr. Barron's private sessions. My heart pounded as I stepped closer. There were files, photos, documents, all filled with pieces of a story I didn't yet understand. Then I heard footsteps. I turned. Mrs. Ricci stood in the doorway. But instead of yelling, she pressed a finger to her lips. "Come with me," she whispered. Quickly, we slipped into a narrow hallway behind the walls, a place without cameras, a place used only for secrets. When we reached a small alcove, she finally spoke. "Antonio's mother feared she was being poisoned," she said. "She died before anyone believed her. And the same people who wanted her gone wanted the child blind." I felt the world tilt. "Why?" I asked. "Because a blind heir keeps a powerful man distracted," she said. "And Salvatore Castellini was never supposed to see the truth." In that moment, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't here by chance. Someone needed me to uncover the truth, and someone else would do anything to stop me. The danger was closer than ever, and I had already crossed the line of no return. From that night on, nothing in the Castellini estate felt safe. Every hallway seemed to whisper danger. Every shadow felt like someone watching. I slept lightly, waking at the smallest sound. My only comfort was Antonio. Each day he showed more life, more awareness, more sight. His tiny hands reached for me whenever I entered the room. His eyes followed my movements with growing confidence. He trusted me, and that trust pushed me to keep going, even when fear tried to stop me. 2 days later, Dr. Barron returned for his scheduled visit. I felt sick watching him walk through the doors with his polished shoes and perfect smile. He had no idea that the medications were gone. No idea that Antonio was slowly waking from the darkness he had created. When he stepped into the nursery, I stayed beside the crib. I did not leave him alone with the child for even 1 second. He reached for Antonio's chart. "He seems agitated today," he said. "He seems alert." I corrected, keeping my eyes on him. He glanced at me, then at Antonio, whose head turned toward him. For a split second, the doctor froze. I saw fear flicker across his face, a small, almost invisible crack in his mask. Then Salvatore entered the room. He closed the door slowly and locked it. The air changed. It felt tight and dangerous. "Doctor," Salvatore said calmly, "I find it interesting that my son is more responsive than usual." The doctor tried to laugh it off. "Development can fluctuate at this age." I stepped forward. "He tracked your movement when you entered." For the first time, the doctor's confidence wavered. Salvatore walked closer, his presence filling the room. He wasn't shouting. He didn't need to. His cold calm was more frightening than any scream. "What have you been doing to my son?" he asked. The doctor's hands trembled as he held his clipboard. "Nothing outside standard care. You know his condition is permanent." "Permanent?" Salvatore repeated. "Or manufactured?" The doctor's eyes darted between us. That was his mistake. He broke. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," he whispered. "I didn't have a choice. They threatened my family." "Who?" I demanded. He swallowed hard. "The Morales family." I felt my blood run cold. That name had been whispered throughout the mansion. An enemy, a rival, a danger. Salvatore didn't move. He simply said, "Continue." The doctor's voice cracked. "They told me to keep the boy sedated, to make sure he didn't develop normally. They needed you distracted, Castellini. They needed your attention away from your business." A silence fell so heavy it felt like the air vanished. Then Salvatore spoke, and his voice was deadly calm. "You blinded my son to weaken me." The doctor broke into a sweat. I didn't want to, but they said they'd kill my children." I gave him doses to keep him still, to keep him quiet. Nothing more, I swear it. I lifted a recorder from my pocket and pressed play. His earlier phone call echoed through the room. The boy continues to respond to the treatment. Yes, keeping Castellini distracted is working perfectly. The doctor went pale. Salvatore stared at him without blinking. You will be moved to a secure location. You will talk again, and you will tell me everything. 2 guards stepped in and took him. The moment the door closed, Salvatore's shoulders sagged. He covered his face with his hand, something I never expected from him. My wife died believing she was sick in the mind, he said, and my son lived 2 years in darkness because I trusted the wrong man. I felt something rise in my throat, anger, pain, sympathy. Antonio is improving, I said gently, and we will keep him safe. His eyes met mine. For the first time, they weren't just the eyes of a mafia boss. They were the eyes of a father, a man who had lost everything and was terrified of losing more. Why did you suspect? He asked. I hesitated. Then I told him the truth. My own son died because a doctor ignored the signs. I live every day wishing someone had spoken up. I won't let that happen to another child. He took my hand, not forcefully, not coldly, just human. Thank you, he said. The connection between us felt real, fragile, but powerful. But the moment didn't last. Gunshots exploded in the distance. The windows rattled. Someone shouted outside the door. Salvatore grabbed a hidden gun from the wall and pushed Antonio into my arms. Go, he ordered. Take him to the panic room behind the study. Don't stop. Don't look back. Salvatore. Now! His voice left no room for debate. I ran. Antonio clung to me as we flew down the hallway. The mansion lights flickered. More shots echoed through the halls. I could hear men yelling, boots pounding, glass shattering. We turned a corner and stopped. A man in black tactical gear stood blocking the hallway. His gun was pointed at my chest. Give me the child, he said. No one else needs to die. My heart slammed against my ribs. Antonio whimpered and hid his face against my shoulder. I was trapped. Then, click! A soft metallic sound came from behind him. Mrs. Ricci stood in the doorway with a shotgun steady in her hands. You will not touch that boy, she said. The man turned. He never even fired. Mrs. Ricci pulled the trigger. Move! She yelled. We ran again. Smoke filled the hall. The mansion trembled as another explosion rocked the ground. Men shouted directions in Italian. Doors slammed. Sirens blared. We reached the elevator leading to the wine cellar. As soon as the doors closed, I felt myself shaking all over. Mrs. Ricci turned to me, out of breath but fierce. You keep that baby close, no matter what happens upstairs. I held Antonio tighter as the elevator descended. Somewhere above us, the war for this house had begun, and I knew this was only the beginning. A storm was coming, one that would change everything. The moment the elevator doors opened into the wine cellar, I felt the danger pressing down from every direction. The room had been turned into a secure bunker, with thick walls and emergency supplies stacked neatly along the shelves. Mrs. Ricci shut the heavy steel door behind us and locked it as another explosion rattled the floor above. Antonio held on to me tightly, his little hands gripping my shirt. His eyes were wide, but this time he wasn't blind with confusion. He was aware, he understood danger, and he trusted me to protect him. We watched the security monitors set into the wall. Men in tactical gear moved through the mansion, smashing furniture and firing shots toward Salvatore's guards. Smoke filled the hallways. Sparks flew from shattered light fixtures. I felt my heartbeat pulsing in my ears. Then I saw him. Salvatore, moving through the chaos like a man who had fought his way through fire his entire life. Calm, deadly, focused. Every gunman who crossed his path went down. But the fight was far from over. Hours passed before the battle ended. Gunfire faded. Shouting stopped. The cameras finally went still. When the steel bunker door opened again, I held my breath, and then I heard his voice. Lucy. I turned and saw him standing there, covered in dust and blood but alive. His dark eyes softened when he saw Antonio rush toward him on unsteady legs. "Papa!" Antonio cried. The small boy's voice echoed off the stone walls, so clear and full of life that I felt tears rise to my eyes. Salvatore dropped to his knees and gathered his son in his arms, pulling him close with a broken sound that almost shattered my heart. His son could see him. His son could speak his name. His son was alive. When Salvatore finally lifted his gaze to mine, something changed between us, something deep and unspoken. "You saved him," he said softly. "You brought my boy out of the darkness." Before I could speak, the head of security entered with a critical update. "Morales has been captured. He walked into a trap we set in the Northern Territories." Relief flashed across Salvatore's face, but only for a moment. "We are not safe here anymore. They will come again." Everything moved fast after that. Within 24 hours, we were on his private jet, heading for a medical facility in Switzerland, hidden deep in the mountains. Snow-covered peaks rose around us like white towers when we arrived. Antonio began treatment immediately. He responded to every light test, every color, every sound. His brain fought to recover, and he was improving faster than anyone expected. He laughed. He played. He saw the world for the first time. And through it all, Salvatore stayed close, watching, learning, quietly breaking apart and putting himself back together as a father, not just a mafia boss. One night, while Antonio slept and the mountains glowed silver with moonlight, Salvatore and I stood alone on the balcony outside the clinic. "You risked everything for a child who wasn't yours," he said. "Why?" I swallowed hard. "Because I lost my own child to a doctor's neglect. I couldn't save him. But I could save Antonio." He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him against the cold mountain air. "You didn't just save him." His voice was low, raw. "You saved me." I felt something inside me shift. I tried to speak, but the words caught in my throat. Before I could answer, an urgent call came in from Sicily. Morales had taken Salvatore's territories. He was demanding a meeting. He was expecting Salvatore to come back alone. It was a trap. Everyone knew it. But he had to go. The next morning, he packed his bags with a grim expression. He stood in the doorway of Antonio's room for a long time, watching his son sleep peacefully. Then he turned to me. "I'll come back for you," he said. "For both of you." His forehead rested against mine. His hands cupped my cheeks with a tenderness that made my heart ache. Then he left, carrying everything he was into the storm, waiting for him. Weeks passed. Then, months. We moved from Switzerland to a safe house in France, then Norway. Each time someone found us, we fled again. Through it all, Antonio grew stronger. He learned colors, words, emotions. He asked about his father every night. "When, Papa, come?" "Soon." I whispered each time, "Soon." And then, one winter morning, as snow fell outside the glass walls of our Norwegian safe house, the message came. "It's time to come home." My breath caught as I read it. Antonio looked up at me with bright, hopeful eyes. "Papa?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Papa." The journey back to Sicily felt unreal. As our helicopter descended toward the estate, I saw him standing on the rooftop helipad, waiting alone, the wind whipping at his dark hair. When the doors opened, Antonio sprinted into his father's arms with perfect sight guiding every step. "Papa!" quote. Salvatore lifted him, holding him tight, his eyes closing as if he had been holding his breath for months. Then he looked at me. He reached out his hand in silent invitation. I took it. Life didn't return to the way it had been before. It became something better. Something brighter. The estate opened its windows again. The nursery filled with light and toys and laughter. Antonio ran through the halls with joy instead of fear. And Salvatore, this man feared across Sicily, changed for the sake of his son. Late one evening, as the sun set over the Mediterranean, Salvatore took me to the cliffside terrace. He held a small velvet box in his hand. "My son needs a mother," he said softly, and I cannot imagine a future without you." My heart stopped. When he opened the box, a beautiful emerald ring sparkled in the fading light. "Lucy," he said, his voice steady and full of emotion, "be my wife." My answer came with tears and a trembling smile. "Yes." Our wedding was small and quiet, just the people who had stood by us through everything. Antonio walked proudly as our ring-bearer, and when the ceremony ended, he wrapped his arms around us both. "We family now," he said, and he was right. That night, as moonlight danced across the sea, Salvatore held me close and whispered, "You came here to bring light to a blind child, but you brought all of us out of the darkness." For the first time in years, I felt whole, loved, home, and I knew this was only the beginning.